Hey guys, welcome in. This is a tutorial for the draft tool. There have been a number of beta test users. I put this out on Reddit. Tons of people were testing it out, reporting back with the bugs that they were finding, some difficulties with, just figuring out where things are. So I felt like it would be a good idea to kind of run a tutorial of sorts. And, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments here on YouTube. Hit me up on the Reddit post that I put up about the draft tool here, or even in the Fantasy Hockey Discord. So let's hop into the draft tool and how to run it from scratch, how to use it alongside one of your active drafts. Here we go. All right, so at this point, I want to kind of give you guys an idea of how it was built and what the foundation is coming from, and where this data is. And right here is my home for all of this. So what I did is, I guess I can show you this part. So you guys won't have a login for this one because you're not me. Yeah. Oh, that's why. So there is a database secret, spot for all this stuff. This is where I am injected the actual CSVs for the preloaded projections and things like that. So right here is where all of those live. So what I did, and this will give you kind of an idea of like how you should save and import your own projections, because it'll give you a little more insight into like how, like what data types would be acceptable, what headers would be acceptable, and things like that. So one of the more difficult ones has been DOMs, or Dom and Shayna, I should say. So right here, the first thing I do is I have to assign a player name column. So it can go and it can find like a player ID, NHL player ID, things like that. Rank is not going to be one that we need. Keeper is not going to be one that we need. This one's blank, so that's nothing. Pretty much anything that's text, we don't need. Age, that's already native to the thing. Fantasy points, we don't need. Games played here. VORP, that's calculated inside the draft tool. ADP, again, that comes straight from Yahoo. Diff, that's not something we're going to use. -1, I don't know what that is. Adjust. And then right here for data type numeric, that's where it starts to get real. So right here, you can see that the header maps to Tom on Ice overall, and where we can get these is from one of my I think it's Yahoo players. It's either Yahoo players or it's my WGO, which I used for the WeGo charts. Yeah, so it's got to be the WGO. So it takes these stats here, which this is an enormous table, 2 million lines long. So I'll sort it because they were not tracking like hits and stuff back in 1917. So I'll sort it. It'll take a minute to resort here to get to the 2025 version. But yeah, here we go. So these are pretty much the columns that would be acceptable. So if you're trying to like import salary or VORP or something like that, you're not going to be able to, because the only data types that I have available to match to are like handedness, shoots, catches here, position code, games played, points underscore per underscore game, goals, assists. Like there's a very strict typing when it comes to data types and the headers and what it's going to map to. You're not going to see it in the draft dashboard, like this mapping that's happening here. You're just going to see, oh, GP is accepted. Yeah. Behind the scenes, it's mapping it to the standardized database column name, which is games underscore played. TOI is going to be time on ice overall, which is why sometimes like average time on ice might give you some issues. And then right here, look, _2, which is I think one of his weird columns. Games played 1. seems not to be accepted at this point, which is games played projections for goalies. So that one will need to be deselected. I think later in the video, like I'm recording this kind of all over the place. Later in the video, I said GP_1 would be okay. It looks like that's not the case, but I also remember saying that splitting Dom's spreadsheet up by position, like skaters, even defensemen, center, left wing, right wing, into one sheet, and then goalies into another sheet, you're going to have a much better time with the draft board. Like it's the draft dashboard. It's going to give you better results. It's not going to muddle the waters because, if you think that games played is going to work, it might not. So that's one thing. And then, I name, and then it gives me a preview of what it looks like. And then I can upsert it, which is what it's called when you insert something into a database here. So 2.1 million records. Let's see how many we got. This is my database. I call it vibes, because there was one guy that I think on Reddit or something was like, yeah, I don't know about 5-hole fantasy. It seems like they just go all vibes. But here is my 5 million rows of vibes that I run off of. So I named it after him. He doesn't think we do anything with data.
Who are you talking to right now? Who is it you think you see? Do you know how much data I pull in a day? Even if I told you, you wouldn't believe it. Do you know what would happen if I decided to stop the ingestion just for one day? If that goes belly up. A database big enough to power an entire fantasy hockey ecosystem. Big enough to choke a server farm. Daily reports, rolling regressions, live Yahoo data, machine learning algorithms. All goes dark. No, you clearly don't know who you're talking to. So let me clue you. You think you hear vibes? What you're hearing is the sound of hundreds of thousands of rows of data, millions of lines of code and computation distilled into human speech. I am not running on vibes. I am the foundation. I don't chase data. Data reports to me. Other analysts, they're hunched over Excel, copy and pasting CSVs, looking up the syntax for formulas on Google, hand typing box score stats with no prior foundation, building their opinions on the fly. And you think that of me? No. My vibes are data. I am the data.
All right. I had fun making that this morning. That was specifically for the one guy on Reddit. Yeah. So we do a little bit of data here. Let's do that data, baby. So anyway, I forget kind of where I was. I want to get into I want to get into the draft dashboard now and kind of the tutorial. So anyway, here we go. So this is what you will be met with when you go to the draft dashboard, drop down link, whatever you want to call it, on FHFhockey.com. This is where we set up all of our settings. This is the stuff that needs to get done before you even enter a draft room. Now I know Yahoo can get a little crazy with figuring out like where, folks are. The randomizer might not be 5 or 10 minutes before your draft, but most of the stuff you can figure out before you go into it. You can figure out your scoring settings. You can figure out how many teams there are. So let's play it as if we have the 6th pick in a 12-team league. We can do points and categories. That way we figure out, one or the other. I'll run you through a couple of the, like this, it's not perfect. I was talking to a user on Reddit today. He was like, how come, or maybe it was last night. Anyway, he was like, if I pick only Scott Cullen's projections, why is it that when I go to categories and I wait for a certain category, why does everybody go to 0? Now, we can get into the minutia and when the draft tool gets a little temperamental, but there's, for the most part, it doesn't tell you when you're doing something wrong. It'll just break. So let's say, Scott Cullen's projections. Let's check them out. So we'll open them up here. I think those are these ones, right? and this is a very important thing too, so pay attention to this, because if you are going to be importing your own projections and things like that, it's going to be important for you to know what format it kind of has to be in order to have the draft tool accept it. So first off is, you look at the way that Cullen has his stuff set up, right? So the way that I did it to get the most data is I made a sheet called Big Sheet. Doesn't matter what you name it. And then I went to the position by position fantasy rankings, and then you copy the active rows. So for me, that I just went to here, and then I copied that, pasted it into another sheet, and then I went down here. You don't want to get the rank, like you don't want to get the header again. So just start with the players and then work your way down, and then build what I called the Big Sheet. And it has every player. So, I got the centers first, then the left wings, then the right wings, then the D. And you can do another one for goalies too, but this one looks pretty good. You can export this just as it is. And we'll go through how to import, export, what things you need to do when you're importing, very important, and what things you can do to export to make things a little easier on yourself when you are trying to get this done. All right, I just had to make sure, because I'm using OBS for like the first time ever, because I need to be able to have two screens, and I can't do that in StreamYard, at least not natively or without paying $500 a month or whatever it may be. So bear with me as I get used to the scenes and things like that. I didn't have my microphone added as like an audio source, so I didn't know if it was working. So I had to cut away so I could do it without wasting too much time. Everything seems to be okay. Let's go back to the Scott Cullen ones, because we'll do Scott Cullen, which is already preloaded into the sheet, but I want to give you guys an idea of like what needs to happen when you're exporting a CSV. You can't just, take Dom's projections, go to the fantasy list, export it as CSV, and then drag and drop it straight into the draft tool. There is kind of a little bit of curating that you need to do in order to have it accept your projections. So like I said, we're already got rid of like the middle headers, and like you can do the top 400 scorers here, but you're only getting goals, assists, and points, which is why I went to position by position. Then I went to the Big Sheet and pasted each section in so that I had a large list of players. This is what you're going to do. You're going to go to that specific sheet, and then you want to download as CSV. And with that, you get your download. You can come to the draft dashboard, import, and this is where your downloads come in. You drag and drop it. And now this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So Scott Cullen's is really nice, and it agreed with the way that my database is set up, the import CSV functions that I built. They only accept like a certain type of column row and like headers and things like that. So his was really nice. What I just did yesterday was there were issues with players who have the same last name or who have like punctuation in their names: JT Miller, JT Compher, Elias Lindholm, and Hampus Lindholm. So you just go through here and you pick which player is which player. JT Miller's not available. So I wonder if I push that or not. Let me check. I can check the dev server and see how that looks. So I was working on that yesterday, trying to like resolve all that ambiguity between the names and to see whether or not, I could streamline it and make it easier for you guys. So I spent a lot of yesterday trying to resolve this. So I don't know if I pushed those updates yet, because I know I had it done. So this is the development server. And let's do, where was Dom's? Because his was like super, super difficult. Here we go. Fantasy list. Because he had like, there were different, yeah. So I guess I didn't push the update yet, but a lot of them are like automatically resolved. So I'll push this update today, and just know that like when you are updating your own, actually let's just get it done now, because I'm not gonna think about that again. So I'm gonna commit those changes and push it to production, and then we can refresh and we'll try it again. There, I'm just gonna do a bullshit push, commit, sync, and then we'll check GitHub just to see when it is all updated. So back to DOMs. Let's just play with the development server, because that's what's going to be pushed to production pretty soon. That'll be the same version of the draft dashboard that you guys will have. Now, DOMs is crazy annoying, and daubers as well. Fantastic resources, but just built like they just butt heads with the import function that I have created here. So think of it this way. And I want to, at a certain point, like have a list available on this little pop-up that comes up when you're trying to import projections, like what columns are available to us based on what's in my database. Because Keeper, we don't have that option. You do need position, rank, that's not going to matter at all. And over here in the player column, you just need to specify which column is the name. And it does a pretty good job of guessing. I have never encountered a case where it didn't guess correctly. So just keep an eye out for that, because this needs to be done correctly as well. Now this is a blank column, which I don't know what it is and like why it is. Let's see, where's that list? I think that was it. No, that's Laidlaw. Anyway, we just need to remove all of the columns here that aren't really like scoring categories. Team is fine. Team is nice to have. You don't need to have it. Fantasy points, that is so that's going to be another one that's like a little bit confusing without this kind of video or without somebody who built my database. So you do have to deselect all of the just weird columns. VORP, that gets calculated natively in the dashboard, so you don't need to put his VORP in. Salary, ADP, doesn't matter, because again, that's live on the site here. Diff, I don't know what that is in terms of what his sheet means. _1, that's going to go away. Adjust, that's going to go away. Here's one that I do want to say here on the video. Games played, and then games played _1. You can have both of those. Now, games played _1 is just a projection for the goalies. But these other ones, like the _2, whatever that means, adjust, which I guess is, you can put a level of confidence in a player, or, if you want to personally boost a specific player by a percentage, you can do that inside his sheet. It's not going to transfer to our draft dashboard. So everything over here is good. You do want to look at this. So this is the preview. And this is just going to give you an idea of how your setup is transferring to the system. Now this preview here, you want to make sure every column is lined up, that it has the right thing. There are some issues. I think DFO with their plus minus was a little bit weird, because they put their plus minus in like quotes or something. So it had to go through as a text rather than a numeric data type. So just make sure everything's good. Games played, that looks right. Time on ice overall, that's right. It does get transferred to like minutes and seconds later on in the calculations. Goals, assists, points, everything is here where it should be. You want to look for empty rows, which these will pop up when it comes down to the goalies. You want to look for empty rows, or just like something that kind of looks corrupt. If everything looks good, you can move on to the next one. Down here is a list of all the players that the new system has caught and has matched up for you. The rest, and I have to fix the styles here, because it does kind of like flow off the page, but I'm more worried that everything's working correctly than it looks pretty at this point. Although I do think it looks really pretty. So you want to make sure Pedersen is Pedersen. See right here, it's Pedersen D. I don't know why the team's not transferring. I'm not worried about it right now, but it does have the Pedersen as D. So you want to, like, this is the best guess that it has. So you click no, and then you can click from the drop down where it has Van C. And if there isn't the correct option in the drop down, that's what that search box was next to it here. So let's do it. Okay, Aho C is Aho C. Yes. Alexander Vlasic and Alex Vlasic. So that's why this has to happen, because Scott Cullen calls him Mike Matheson, and then Dom calls him Michael Matheson. Steve Laidlaw calls it Joshua Norris, and then you have Kubota who calls him Josh Norris, and then there's Michael Anderson and Mikey Anderson. So there's just a lot of like different versions of the same name. And this is what we're resolving right here. So you want everything to kind of work out the right way. Alexander Vlasic and Alex Vlasic, those are the same people. Michael Anderson, Mikey Anderson, yes. Connor Murphy. That's an exact match. I don't know why that didn't work. Oh, because there's fucking two of them. That's why. Another one, Nathan Schmidt and Nate Schmidt. So that's like it. It's close enough. Like you can see here, Jacob Allen and Jake Allen. That's a 72.7% match in terms of like, is the name correct? And there is a threshold. I think I set it to like 98%. So if the last name is an exact match and the first name is within, I think it's over 80%, then it will resolve itself automatically. And that helps me with the Jake and Jacob, the Josh and Joshua. And I can't change that because there is just so much. Like I can, but if I do, everything will break, and then you guys will be here doing 800 players manually. And that's not what I want. So, you know, this might seem annoying to you. Oh my God, I can't believe I have to do this. Like, trust me, the alternative is much worse. So Jake Allen and Jacob Allen are the same person. Andrew and Drew O'Connor, Gabriel and Gabe, Matthew and Matt. Perfect. 2 rows lack a player ID. I'd bet my entire life that this is Maxim Shabanov and maybe like Danila Yurov, 2 players who I haven't imported into my database for 25-26 because, God, do I want to get into it? Maybe I do. My off-season logic is I thought it was great, but it's not. And this project has exposed a lot of flaws in how I determine and assign a season ID for an off season. So Shabanov, Danila Yurov, they have player IDs for next season, but the way that my off season logic works is so if today is after the last day of last season and before the first day of next season, then our season ID is last season. And I ran into the same issue with Utah changing their name from the Hockey Club to the Mammoth on the game grid. Like, they just disappeared because there was no team ID for Utah the Mammoth in 24-25, which is what the season ID was set to. So I had to like force it in, shoehorn it in. Fixing my off-season logic right now would set me back about 2 weeks, and I really want to push this out. So I've just kind of like patched in these. I just heard from Reese Albrecht. It looks like Will Cooley's down for 79 hits. All right, I'll check on that. So I'm getting like a ton of feedback, and that's exactly what I want. So if you guys are out there using this tool and you notice anything that's weird, let me know. If it seems like functionally weird, that's going to be high up on my list. If it's just like, hey, do you mind implementing this? Low on the list, because I'm not going to lie, I'm ready to be done with this. It's been a lot of fun to build it for you guys and everything, but it's like, I'm ready to be done. So little like aesthetic changes, or, hey, do you mind if there's an option for face-offs to only count for centers? Like, I'm sorry, I'm not doing that this year. Next year, yeah, we can work on that, but we're pretty close. So I just want to push it. So again, when we are importing a CSV, let's use DOMs here as an example, just to reiterate. We're going to deselect all the weird rows, which I'll show you the database here, so we know like what kind of rows that you can expect that we could use that would be acceptable, and ones that would be unacceptable, like dash money and dash games played and dash VORP and things like that. Those are just not going to transfer. I haven't tried, and I think other users, like beta testers, have tried, and I think it'll accept it. Like, it just will ignore it, but it's probably safer just to give the system what it expects. That way there's no unexpected things down the road. Like if you're in a slow draft, a few of the people I'm talking to are like, hey, I love the fact that there's this bookmark key that you can use. I'm going to be using a slow draft for 3 months, and it's just, or 3 weeks or whatever. And it's nice to have something that I can come back to. And, that's awesome. So confirm import down here at the bottom. You can't really see it because the way the UI is done. We have to force import and then confirm import. So then it'll recalculate the players down here with the new projections in. And this is where we can get into the fun stuff. So if you don't know your draft order just yet, you're not going to be able to do this, but you want to set up the rest of the settings before you do the team settings. So that way you're ready to go. When the draft room opens, all you have to focus on is the order of the teams and things like that. So let's pretend that the draft order is available to us, that we have the 6th pick, let's say. So we're going to pick team 6 up here. I like to do this first just so that I know where I am. Let's pretend we're in a points league, 12 teams with 2 centers, left wings, right wings. And we are going to be using a utility. And there's an option here to, like, if your league uses forwards instead of center, left wing, right wing, you do that, and it gives you the forward option, and it takes away the center, left wing, right wing. VORP is recalculated. The VONA, value over next available, VBD, which is an aggregate of VONA, VORP, the value-based drafting, things like that. Depending on what you use, you can rock it anyway. And I'll do keeper leagues later. So right now we're going to do a non-keeper league just to get the basis out of the way. Preloaded is 5-hole scoring. You're going to want to edit this depending on your own league settings, things like that. You click this. If, like, say you count plus minus, right? You start from here, hit the add, and then you can go to plus minus, and then you set plus minus for what it is, and then you hit add stat, and then right here it's saved, so it's accepted, it's recalculated, it's done all that. If you don't use one of these stats, like say plus minus was in automatically, you can X out of it, and then it saves, it recalcs, it does all that. If you are in for goalies, now if you want to edit this one, now goals against average is really strange to have in a points league, so we don't have it, as we have goals allowed, saves, shutouts, and wins, and that's how our goalie scoring is here. So I'll make a note to take GAA, goals allowed average, out by default. From here is where we're going to go down into the and just keep a heads up, like, you can collapse this whole thing over here. So there's like a little setting. And if you don't use, like, I have it set automatically to snake, but you can also do a standard draft as well. So let's push this actually while we're here. Let's make sure it's not fucked. It's good. Everything's all right. Confirm merge. All right, so that'll push, and it'll be available on the production site before this video ever hits, because I'm recording it not live. Out by default. Sorry, I'm just making a note of that bug. All right, so again, we're looking at these settings, right? Like, I have the 6th pick. We're in a points league. It's not a keeper. We've already imported a CSV. I'll do this part again too, because I want to show you Daubers is like super extensive. There are so many players in Dauber's projections that it really just exposed a lot of flaws and cracks in my code and in the different logic, which is great because it's pretty comprehensive. So I found as many of the flaws as I could. All right, let's not move away from this just yet. So some users might want to like give certain weights to certain projection sources. Like, you know, I did a study and Cullen wound up grading out the best last year with his projections. So if I wanted to give Cullen more weight, I could do that. And then the rest of the projections here will recalculate so it always equals 100%. So you see, I just moved him to 70. Everybody else shot down to 2. And the rest will be like a custom or like pretty similar in terms of, how do you call it? It'll be an even split between the rest if you don't have the rest. And then it'll give you a reading like right here, Apples and Genos 6%. The rest of them are at 6%. And actually, that's something I need to check out because the custom stays at 41% regardless. I don't think that one has been recalculating. I know it does, but why is it going up? All right. Anyway. So I'll work on this because that seems strange. So I wonder if I could just do like a reset button and everything gets smashed out the same way. So right now, the way that this is set up, it's giving Datsuk to Zetterberg the most weight, and then the 5-hole projections that I put together, there's a whole algorithm that went into that and how those were out. So those free projections are available by default in this system here. I did not grade out Kubota or Laidlaw last year. I think, you know, in terms of how the projections were ranked, it was just AG, Cullen, Datsuk to Zetterberg, and Dom, and I graded those out. And you know, I like to have my own setting styles here, so you know you can have yours as well, but however you want to do it. Just wanted to give you an idea of like how you could weight certain players. Here is where I guess when you put a custom CSV in, like this was Dom's, and something I can fix that I'll put on my to-do list because that's a functional error. When you put somebody in by default, it looks like they automatically get half the weight here, so you do have to like grade it accordingly. It looks like each of these should be 25%, but the only 3 sources that are preloaded for goalies was Datsuk to Zetterberg, Daily Faceoff, and Scott Cullen. Those were the only 3 who did goalie projections. And then obviously Dom, but that came through as a custom CSV. So it does split it up, skaters and goalies here. So it like are defaulted to CSV-2. Now, Apples and Genos, who else? Kubota, Laidlaw, they didn't do goalies. So if you're doing goalies categories and things like that, you only have these sources available to choose from. And actually, one thing I forgot here, the available stats that you have, like a couple of these I forced in, defense points I forced in, and shorthanded assists I forced in, but those were derivative. I was able to get shorthanded assists because shorthanded points and shorthanded goals were available. So if you take points and then subtract goals from it, you should be left with assists. So that one was a derivative and is calculated in-house. But if your league counts a statistic that is not available in this dropdown, it is because that statistic does not exist in any unique projection source. So if you add in a projection source that has that metric that you are looking for, say you're looking for, what is not here? I don't even know, maybe face-off percentage. Maybe for like a Cats League, which I guess I could force into if I did face-off wins versus face-off losses and found the percentage that way. Anyway, this list is built upon the list of metrics that's available to us in the projections. There's no native like, oh, all stats, because if there's no projections for, takeaways or giveaways or something like that, and you're looking for giveaways, like you can put giveaways in this list of scoring settings, a billion times if you wanted to. But if nobody's projecting giveaways, you're going to keep getting 0 for every single player. So that is not available. For goalies, same deal. If there's a projection source that has a statistic available, it will be available to you in this list. And if there is no projection source with that like column header or anything like that, it won't be available. So you're not going to be able to choose from it. Okay. Bringing it back again. My ADHD is really showing today. All right, so we're going to collapse that. Remember, we have 6 picks, so we're going to go down here to the team standings, which is where you can customize the names of teams. So that's where I'll put me. And the rest of the teams, like I'm not going to name them. I'm not going to waste your guys' time on that right now. But you can go through and you can like, all right, if team 1 is, like Reptar has picked number 1, and then you have Baymax who has picked number 2, and then you go through, you name those teams, and then it shows you, it just looks a little neater for you. This draft graph down here is just kind of a it just gives you an idea of like where you are in the list, and if you make a pick, you can hover over it and it'll show you who was drafted there, their projected points, what pick number it was, etc., who's the owner. And it'll also, this is something that, had I had time for it, I could have done it, but you should, like say you're not team number 1, pick number 1 overall, just click the My Team and it'll revert to your own roster. I had a request in for, hey, I want to be able to see like the projected picks or the suggested picks for other teams. I didn't have time for it. So maybe that's something I can do in the future. Like say you wanted to, team 1 now has Connor McDavid. Can I see what their updated projected or suggested picks should look like now that they have one center available or one center spot already filled? Now VORP does recalculate as your roster is filled, and it also can recalculate based on what your roster needs are. And that is what these 2 checkboxes are right up here in these suggested picks. So this need V is your VORP based on your remaining roster needs. And the PR is personalized recommendations, which means like, it personalizes the replacement baselines based on your already filled slots. So when, say you're in a league that has 2 roster spots for centers, and you've already drafted 2 centers, it's going to devalue centers in the draft by VORP so that they're not shown to you as often. Like it only devalues them by about, I think it's a 25% baseline, and then it's 6.25% for every spot that you have extra that's filled. Now, say you have 3 centers, one's on your bench or one's in the util spot. Again, it'll just get devalued again by another 6%. It'll never get devalued all the way to 0, because even if you devalue by 25%, if you devalue 100 by 25%, you're now at 75. And then you devalue that by 6%, you're only looking at 4 that's being subtracted, and then you're at 71. And you can keep taking 6% away, but you'll never hit 0. It's like walking halfway to the wall. If you keep going halfway and halfway and halfway, you're still never going to hit the wall. It'll just be halfway at a minuscule level. So there's no real way to basically just ignore centers. Like you can't just deselect centers. One request that I had from somebody was, hey, what if I want to see what everybody looks like if they played 82 games? Like, what would that look like? So here it is. You can look at this, and you can see everybody get recalculated their VORP, their VONA, value over next available, if they were to play 82 games. And that's when you'll see guys like Matthew Tkachuk kind of jump back up because there's already that injury baked into his projections. Right here, there's the settings that you can kind of play with. I suggest you just leave it the way it is, but if you want to like kind of curate the way that your VoRP works, so the way that I like VoRP is if you have 2 right wing slots in a 12-team league, then that's 24 right wings that are going to get rostered, which makes the 25th right wing the replacement player. If you select overall from this value band scope, it will take the entire roster into account. So it'll take, if you have 2 centers, 2 left wings, 2 right wings, that's 6 forwards per team at 12 teams. And then it'll take all of those into consideration, find a new replacement player. I like to do it by position, but if you don't like to do it by position, that's where you're going to find it, is right here in this settings, which opens this pop-up, and then you're going to switch the value band scope to overall. Your VoRP baseline will either take the full pool into account, which includes drafted players already, or the remaining. I like remaining because it recalculates after each draft pick, and I like that. You can enable waiting for your needs based on your roster. If you want to, say you're drafting too many centers, you can click this, and it'll shift you more towards right wings or left wings or defensemen, anything like that. This risk model, this was just something I thought was kind of cute. That's right here, which is how likely somebody is to be drafted by your next pick. So it literally, there's nothing fancy into it. It just goes by, actually it looks kind of backwards right now. So I have to look at this. Actually, no, because the next 4 picks. So actually it's working right. It actually is working correctly. It'll recalculate to have 100% after me, team 6 picks. So this one rides off exactly Yahoo ADP. There's no predictive analysis or machine learning model that goes into this little bar right here. It's literally just ADP. So right now, we're team 6, so we're up in 5 picks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means everybody that is before pick 6 is going to be pretty unlikely to make it to us. And that's literally all it's saying. It's saying 1 center, 1 left wing, and 2 right wings have a pretty high chance of being drafted before pick number 6. So right here, 1 center, 1 left wing, and 2 right wings have a chance before, by rank, by ADP, is likely going to get us whoever it is, which maybe it goes by projected fantasy points here, but then it takes into account the ADP. So don't think this is any machine learning or AI or anything like that. It's literally just ADP. Yeah. So let's have a little bit of fun here. Let's take our picks, which is where, see, now these big high ones come into place because there's 12 picks before our next pick. So there's a pretty high likelihood that Kirill Kaprizov is not going to be there for you. So you can, pretty much figure that out. A new feature, which I think is pretty rad, is this compare feature. So you can, say you're torn between Kaprizov and Cale Makar. You click 2 of these yellow, and then you hit the compare button, and it brings up this really neat thing that I just built yesterday. And it looks like Cale Makar wins overall. So it'll show you by percentile where each player ranks. And this is what this radar chart also shows, is how good this player is percentile wise in each category. Admittedly, this does make a lot more sense for categories leagues than it does for points leagues. But I still thought it was a pretty neat feature. There was plans to have more than 2 players available. Say you wanted to compare 4 different players. You can't. You can fill this list up as much as you want. You can check as many as you want, but it's only going to give you the first 2 that you clicked when you go to compare. And I didn't waste time on putting a limit for only 2 or some sort of UI that would tell you, hey, you picked too many players to try and compare. It's just going to give you the first 2. So, make sure you go back and deselect those things here. There were requests to show just stat columns. So if you wanted to sort by goals, if you wanted to sort by, shots on goal, things like that, you can toggle this on, show stat columns or show the projected fantasy points, ADP, things like that. You can still see ADP here in the stat column thing if you want to, but yeah. This expand button next to the player will show you their stats from last year. It'll give you a rundown. Time on ice per game has not been reformatted to minutes and seconds, so I'll fix that today. But that's, it's a little feature that I just pop in there. I had a request to make essentially a queue, which personally, like in the heat of a draft, unless you're in a slow draft, I don't know how you're going to be using two different queues, like a queue here and a queue in Yahoo or Fantrax or wherever you're drafting from. But it's pretty neat. Like you can star players, and then you can go here to your favorites, and then you can see your favorites, and you can dig that. I don't know why it turned red here. I would ignore that. I don't think that means anything. Hopefully it doesn't mean anything, because he is green here. So you can search players here. There have been some. Jack Hughes was somebody. Yeah, I don't know why he doesn't have the green or orange or whatever color bands here. It's probably because he's been so difficult, with Luke and Jack in that fuzzy name match that we were talking about earlier, that like, Michael Anderson or Mikey Anderson, Jack Hughes and Luke Hughes have at least a 50% match on their first name, because there's a K, I guess, or something, and maybe J and L is close enough, but Hughes is an exact match, the last name obviously. So there were some issues with Jack being assigned Luke's name in a couple of the projections databases. So I'm sure he doesn't have those colors because of that. So I wonder if he has it here. Yeah, he has it here, just not when you search his name. Anyway, let's go into the suggested picks section here. You can also draft from here if you wanted to. Like if you wanted to assign Cale Makar to team number 7, you could just hit this draft button. The view button doesn't do anything. That was a placeholder for something I wanted to do later more also. I can remove those today. But it gives you an idea of who your suggested picks are, and you can sort by how you want those to be assigned. Vorp is a really, really big fan of defensemen, and it makes sense. Like drafting defensemen high in your drafts in the top few rounds is, to me, a smart idea. It's a really big fan of defensemen in 5-hole leagues. It's also not out of place to go for a goalie. So Vorp, I'm surprised not to see a goaltender here. Actually, yeah, I don't see goaltenders anywhere. What the fuck? All right, I got to figure that out too. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's a problem. Well, here's Hellebuck, but Vasilevsky. I wonder, so I was running into an issue where goals against and goals against average were both a problem. So let's refresh the data. Oh, you know what? I think I know what it is. Yep, that's going to be it. So the custom CSV, well, even these out. So when I imported DOMS has those weird rows and things like that. So now I evened them out a little bit, and you can see the fantasy points have updated as a result. So it gave weight to the other ones. For DOMs, it is a smart idea to also split DOM up into two different CSVs just to make it easier on the computation of the draft. And that's a perfect example right there. So I'm glad that's something that came up, because I can tell you guys here during the video, for Dom, for Dauber, I don't know if he has goalies in it, but the way the way that DOMS is sorted. Copy of DOM. Here we go. Oh, see, I think I did that manually. Yeah, so I split it up manually when I was putting it into my database to test, but I guess it didn't work. Is this it? Yeah, so the list. Like if you were to come here and just, file, download CSV, and then try to push it into the draft tool, that's what's going to happen, is the goalies are going to be a little bit strange because those goalies are over here, and that must be that empty column. But you can see like the goalies, they have their own columns. They have their, so what the draft tool is doing is it's looking for wins, losses, and overtime losses for every single forward. Can't find it. And then for goalies, it's also like trying to rank them amongst players who have goals, who have assists, things like that. So one thing that I would suggest that you do in Dom's sheet is to deselect and then just get goalies and then save that as a separate CSV and then go through again. Like, what you can do here is just copy these guys, have a blank sheet, and then, Control Shift V so that everything is just here and you don't have like the V lookups and things like that. So Control Shift V, and then you can export just this as DOM goalies. You'll have to make 2 imports, but it'll make things cleaner when you're using the sheet. Now, I don't know what Dauber's projections look like in terms of whether or not they have, where was it? Was this one? No, I don't think so. That's Cullen. So anyway, without getting too deep into all of my Google spreadsheets and all that stuff, but yeah, so we were here in the dev server. What else can I show you guys? Oh, right. So you can filter this way. If you only want to see centers, you can click that. You have to deselect, like if you have centers and then you go to select left wing, it's going to show you both. It's not going to deselect centers for you by default. So you have to do that if you want to. You can pick the way you sort: VORP, value-based drafting, pure fantasy points, which will give you just, highest fantasy points available. And it'll rank that way. You can choose how you're doing it. You can, top 5, which will truncate here. That way you just have a smaller list, or if you want to go top 20 and you want to see later, it'll also take into account your roster. You can, these will also fill up too. So you can see, I have 1 out of the 2 necessary centers that I need. And then when you go through, you draft, other guys. Oh shit, everybody just drafted a goalie. It'll show you now, there you go. You have 2 centers. But what it'll do is it'll recalculate and it'll force centers down the list a little bit when you do your VORP rankings. So centers will get devalued by VORP, will not get devalued by projected fantasy points. I'm not going to touch the projected fantasy points. Those are calculated through averaging out by your specific weighting that you have in your that you set up in the settings panel. It takes, say you wanted a 2-to-1 ratio of Datsuk to Cullen. Then it would take 2 copies of Datsuk, 1 copy of Cullen, add them together, divide by 3, give you an average that's weighted out 2-to-1 for Datsuk. All right, what else can I show you? I guess there's some things you can do here. 2 things that I wasn't able to do that I think would be good additions for next year. Undo pick. I have talked to some users who were like, hey, I don't want to, like, say, pick number 8 in round 1 is a player that I accidentally drafted. Is there a way that I can just, specifically undo that pick or swap that pick out? At this point, no, there's not. You would have to go undo pick all the way to pick 8, then redo the draft like manually from pick 8 to where you are at. So just be careful, because I know with Yahoo, like a 1 minute draft timer is going to be tough to, it's a lot easier just to go through and swap the pick out. But I didn't have time to code that in. So it's not something we can do right now. The second thing is, and I'll get into this right now, is for the keeper leagues. Whether or not you wanted to, there was a user that asked like, hey, so let's take it. Let's reset the draft so that we can start fresh. Keeper league. When you click over to keeper league, you are met with a new section inside the settings section where you can set keepers and things like that. So different traded picks that you can do. This one weirds me out. So like say team 2 is picking 2 and 2, but right here we're set to snake. Okay. So that is this pick. So just be careful when you're doing this because you have team 2 as round 2 pick number 2, which you would think would be this one. It's not. It'll set you team 11 round 2 pick 2. So just when you're doing that, it's not as straightforward as it would be. I would have liked to have added like, hey, are you sure about that? Because it doesn't line up with the draft graph. So that would be pick 11 for team 2 round 2 because it does take into account the snake. For standard, however, if you're doing pick 2 team 2, hopefully I haven't tested this part out, but hopefully it'll just team 2 pick 2. Did I add it? Yeah, it should be added. Usually there's like a little keeper insignia here that shows up, like a little badge, but I guess not. So yeah, see, that's only implemented for snake drafts. Right. So that would be team 11. So we can remove it and then say that team 11 traded their pick. And I don't know why that didn't update. So anyway, maybe I have to toggle again. Oh, okay. So it does work it's just, it needs to refresh. And I guess that's the only way to refresh it. Now let's go into keepers, setting your keepers and things like that. There have been a lot of users that have come back to me and said, hey, we don't necessarily use specific rounds or picks for our keepers. It's just a straight keep 5. All right. But you do need to, with the draft tool here, pick a round and a pick. So if you're in a keep 5, just force them to the front or the back of the draft. You can do rounds 1 through 5, or if you're in a 17 round league, you can do 13 through 17. Whatever you do, I don't care. Like it needs to be assigned a round and a pick. So that's where you're going to do that. So team 1 over 1-1 is going to be, let's just say Josh Norris, because he was first up. And then Troy Terry is going to go to team 2. Ah, shit. I had them both assigned to 2-1. So yeah. So even though I had team 2 in there. All right. So now we'll give Josh Norris to team number 2. Okay. So then it keeps track of all of your keepers here. And that's how you get an idea. So there's a little keeper badge and you can see them all. So if you're in a keep 5, set your first 5 rounds. Now, one thing I want to try real quick because I'm not sure how this logic went out. So let's do team 1, round 2, pick 1. Let's see where that winds up. Does that go by snake? Yeah. So that would need to be updated to pick number 12 for team 1. And actually it looks like I don't have any logic in to allow for a player only to be kept once. So just keep an eye on that. It looks like William Eklund can be kept twice, which should not be the case. I'll have to put a safeguard in for that. So you set your keepers, you're ready to rock. And what it'll do is it'll start the draft just after that. So, I skipped around here. You can go through and do, team 1's, all their picks. If you only want to stay on pick number 1 and then go through and do all the pick number 12s and things like that, you can. It's just remember, go like round 1, pick 1, and then skip to another odd number. Round 3, pick 1. Round 5, pick 1. And then you can go to do your even numbers, which is going to give you that'll be the end of the snake. So pick number 12. And that's how you set your keepers. Now, I forget whether or not there was an issue with that. Can't remember. Yeah. The one thing I wanted to add about this, or, a feature request that I just didn't have time for, was could there just be a pop-up, where it has all 12 teams in a row and you can set their keepers that way? Yeah, there absolutely can be a pop-up next year. I don't feel like it. It's a good idea. It's a really good idea, and I want to do it. I get really distracted, and I have 3 ideas in my head right now that I really, really want to start working on, but I can't until this is perfect. So if I keep just like adding stuff, other stuff will break inside of it. Like if I set up a keeper pop-up, or a modal, it's called. If I set up a modal for that, maybe something else breaks, and then I'm behind. So as it is right now, I'm at a really good spot. Obviously the goals against, and small little bugs that I found here working through it, that's an issue that I can fix, but they're small issues. And bringing something big like a keeper pop-up or something is just, it's a good idea for next year. So I like these good ideas, keep them coming, and I want to do it. It's just it's not that I don't have the time for it this year. I don't have the bandwidth for it this year. Like what I want to work on is, I want to do a projections model that kind of learns as it's going, like a neural network that'll project fantasy scores for that day for specific players based on their trends, based on their line combinations, whether or not they've been moved up, and to use that data to build something I'm going to call the start chart, which will give you a ranking of positions and how good of a start they would be. So it'll answer the question, do I start Malkin or Ricard Raquel today? The start chart is going to be a predictive model that should rank those players based on its confidence threshold. So if it thinks Ricard Raquel is going to get more points based on his play and line mates and the opponent, it's going to take into account. So I want to build this thing, and I'm really excited about it. I want to get going. So I don't want to add a pop-up. I'm sorry, guys. It's a good idea. Like I said, next year, it's a good idea. Okay, one thing that I haven't talked about that I want to talk about, there's also at the end of the draft, you can see there's this cute little thing that pops up that it'll show you like the biggest reach, the biggest Vort pick, the biggest steal, the winners of the draft, the final ranking based on, your entire roster. And then you can do that. You can look at their specific rosters, and you can see kind of an idea of what the draft looked like. The next thing that I want to show you guys is, let me pull this up. So this bookmark feature, which I thought was going to be super hard to implement, just based on like trying to encode all of your settings, all of your already picked picks, all of your keepers, all of your traded picks, all of your imported CSVs and things like that. But this right here, this bookmark key at the top, you click it and it automatically copies your key to the clipboard. So let's just let's open a Google Doc here. Blank document, right? Oh my God, what the fuck? So what it does is it gives you this insane looking key of combination of letters and things, and like this is unique to your. This is a snapshot of your draft at that point. So if you're in a slow draft, you want to, after every time that you update it, you want to generate a new key and start fresh. So let's test it out, right? Like There are 2 keepers on team 1. There's 1 keeper on team 3, 1 keeper on team 2. Let's just throw in a bunch of draft picks here just to see if it keeps exactly our setting. And to test something out, let's give us 7 goalies to see how it is. So what we'll do is we'll bookmark it. It's copied. And we'll refresh. And we'll start fresh. So keep in mind, like even over here, the DOM sheet is gone, or the dauber, or whoever we imported. You're going to import, and then you can just paste it because it automatically copied to your clipboard, and then it brings back your imported CSV already. It remembered that we had 7 goalies, a bunch of crazy shit goalies. It has all our keepers, it has all our traded picks, things like that, and it remembered exactly where we were in the draft. So inside that key is all of your settings, and it pretty much takes a snapshot of where you are. That's why I call it the bookmark key, because it bookmarks your place in the draft. So if you're in a slow draft, or there was somebody that was like, is this like a live draft room? I was like, not really, but like, if you guys want to go through the trouble of passing back and forth this bookmark key, then you can treat it like one, but it's not. It won't live update for other users that are in the same draft room because there's no peer-to-peer connections or anything like that. So that's where that part kind of fizzles out a little bit. It's not a live draft room. It's not peer-to-peer, but you can share your bookmark key if you like to. And I think that's a pretty neat thing, because even I learned a lot about memory and like local memory and things like that doing this project, because even here, if you try to refresh, you can either start fresh by hitting cancel, or, you know, it's not going to lose your place, because there is, I think, a 1 hour memory where it stashes inside your Google Chrome cache or your Mozilla cache or whatever. It'll stash its own little memory inside your browser for 1 hour. So if you need to leave your draft for more than 1 hour, clicking this bookmark key is something you should do, and save it, because it's not like, even your clipboard has a limited memory. If you restart your computer, your clipboard gets wiped, or a hard refresh, you know, whatever. So that's why I save mine to Apple Notes, or put it in a Google Doc or something like that, and that'll give you an idea of a good spot to save it. So you save it literally like a bookmark. Am I missing anything specific about this? Oh, yeah, so here's a cool one. Leon Draisaitl, just drafted him. Who drafted him? Was it TJ? Was it me? Okay, so my team. Here you go. You can swap positions. That was something I worked on yesterday. And I think, let's see. Vorp, and let's see, just skaters. I want to see if changing positions recalculates Vorp. Doesn't look like it does. So that was something I wanted to do, is like right here, you have 2 centers, and that's what set the original Vorp. But if I switch him to left wing, the Vorp should, and will by the end of day today, should recalculate based on your new roster makeup that is 1 left wing, run center. But right now, it looks like as soon as you draft that player, it recalculates the Vorp based on, 2 centers. And then, or actually maybe, let's see, because I forgot to do this. So maybe it will resort. Okay. Just shows value-based drafting, which should. Yeah. Okay. It does. So right here, look, left wing, Kirill Kaprizov, when I put him into a left wing, it forces left wing down the list. So actually that's already implemented. Beautiful. But you do have to do these personalized recommendation and the need Vorp. They should both, in my opinion, both be used in tandem. because they do kind of the same thing but opposite. Need recalculates VORP based on what you need, and personal recommendation devalues VORP based on what you already have. So they don't do the same thing, but they both rhyme, kind of, if that makes any sense. So the need V will only increase the value of players of positions that you need or push them to the front. What you want to do, I think, in tandem is also devalue players of roster spots that you already have filled. So I thought it was nice to be able to curate it, but I also think both of them should be used in tandem, and that's just a personal preference. So I think, let's do a categories league, because those are going to be a little bit different. Let's restart from scratch. Categories league, pretty straightforward. You can add categories here as you see fit. What just happened there? Shots on goals, hits. I don't know why blocks shows up randomly by clicking that. Blocks should be there by default, so I wonder if it's just hidden behind this. So if you want to add or subtract or anything, it looks like goalie stats. There's only one add subtract thing, but if you have losses and you want to add that, it should automatically get saved to the goalie category thing. If you have forward categories, those will get saved to the forwards here, and then you can hide it. It looks like those stats. There's a spider right here. Those stats might be hidden behind this. Let's see if I don't know where they are. All right, so I guess you have to, if you want to give extra weight to points, you want points to be more score, then you click the weight. So right there, let's say Nathan McKinnon, 95.3, right? And he's a shooter. So you want to give shots some extra weight, 95.4. His score changes based on the weights that you're giving certain categories and things like that. So if you want somebody with really good save percentage, you go there and it'll give extra score to players who are projected to have a good save percentage. And you can, just like you did with the projection sources, where you can weight different projection sources. Like if you trust one source more than you trust another, then you go through, you curate that yourself. And the same thing for categories. Like say how I like to do it is I like to find power play points and goals. Those are most of the two categories that dry up the fastest. So I'll give those a little bit of weight at the beginning and towards the end. At least until you get to the Shane Gostisbehere territory or Tony DeAngelo and stuff, where it's literally a defenseman who only gets power play points. So then you can start to work with your weights a little bit there, but it gives you the option to curate that way. But it looks like it's hidden behind some UI overflow issue here. So for right now, you do have to hit the more in order to be able to weight those things specifically. So just bear with me on that one. And I think that's it, guys. So that's where I'm at with this tutorial. If there's something that I didn't cover, again, you can hit me up in the comments here on YouTube. You can also find me in the Discord. That'll be a quicker and more available place to find me. And then there's also Reddit. You can comment on the post, and that for me also works kind of like a bookmark, because I'll just go through the comments that are on that Reddit post, and that's like my debug to-do list that I've been using. So once again, thank you to everybody that is using the tool, that is also giving me a bunch of feedback and that kind of thing. So I hope you guys enjoy it. That's all I got for you on the draft thing. So thanks. Love yous.